So, dear friends, let's start. May I invite you to take your seat? So, I'm looking into the eyes of the participants about the outcome of yesterday's Bavaria evening. So hopefully you enjoyed it and you got a little bit an idea about the family spirit in Bavaria, the spirit in our beer keller when we are together there, and hopefully we also got a good feeling about family spirit for us as EPP family, that we are present, that we are together, that we can exchange ideas for the future. So I thank our Bavarian hosts again for their engagement. I see Angelika Niebler still here as a CSU representative. So also Florian Hahn as International Secretariat is among us, so welcome. So that's great. Thank you so much for this. And also yesterday, I want to thank everyone about the clear, strong commitment for our debates. I think we enjoyed yesterday 3 top panels. It was on innovation, really inspiring, Maria Gabriel did a great presentation there. We had a good debate on farmers and agriculture, which is close to our heart as Farmers' Party of Europe. And we had a great debate with our 2 leaders in Germany, with Friedrich Merz and Markus Söder, to get an idea about the German dimension, about the situation, the political situation in Germany. So, great day yesterday. Thanks again for your readiness to show up and to participate and to engage. That is what we need. And today we have further aspects in front of us. First, about the European regions, where Siegfried will guide us and will manage things and moderate things. This morning with friends from the regions among us, we are the Regions Party, we are Mayor's Party of Europe, not only Farmers' Party but also Mayor's Party, and that should be also underlined with our today's panel. We have a debate with our non-EU countries. I want to mention 2 of them who are today in a prominent role. First, it's about Moldova, in a very special situation where Natalia will represent the Moldavian voice and give us an idea about the situation there. And I invite also further friends from the region to show up and to contribute to the debate. And we will have our friends from Switzerland with us. So Elisabeth is here to give us a special insight about the situation there. And if you allow me to already mention one point which makes me proud, which should make us proud as EPP, that in the domestic debate in Switzerland, our EPP party, Die Mitte, was in favor of sending weapons to Ukraine. You know, that was a critical discussion. And I thank you for this clear commitment, that you are on the side of Ukraine, that EPP, also in Switzerland, is on the side of Ukraine. So, Elisabeth, thank you so much for this. I want to finally underline one point. We had yesterday night, again, a talk about one position paper on agriculture. We'll come back on this. But just to give you an idea, the idea of the presidency is that we are really doing, let me say this so bluntly, that we are really doing politics in such a political assembly. And doing politics means to have strong positions on content. So I have to say that I am proud that we are really discussing substance of political papers on this political assembly. Why? Because we see the impact. David McAllister showed me now in his local newspaper today, on page 2, in the North German newspapers, main local newspapers, the big article about EPP Farmers' Party. We are on the side of farmers in the European Union. So that is what we are doing in the political assembly here. Probably not yet everywhere in Europe, but we can be stronger there to show up as a political formation. And that is the idea of upgrading our political assemblies in the last month and last year since Rotterdam. There we achieved a lot, and that's thanks to the engagement of a lot of people on the political side. On the administrative side, Thanasis, thanks to you again. There we have a good package, and it's up to your contribution that we make this really strong and really bring this alive. Thanks so much. Have a good second day in Munich, and I give now the floor to Siegfried Murisan for the first panel.
Thank you very much, Manfred. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, dear colleagues. Let me start by firstly thanking our Bavarian friends and hosts for yesterday evening, for what was a very nice and memorable evening. And I think that yesterday as a whole showed us how Bavaria is an example of how one can defend their traditions, their local traditions, their habits, but in the same time innovate, be competitive, be a leader, be open and embrace globalization and lead in that process. And I think this is in fact exactly what we should be discussing this morning during this panel, Innovate Europe with Strong Regions. Yesterday we were discussing about the importance of defending farmers, of why agriculture is important, of why the EPP is the party of farmers, where are the weaknesses of other political forces in defending agriculture, ensuring food security, and we discussed innovation. And this morning we are bringing these two topics together. How do we make sure that innovation gets to the people on the ground? How do we make sure that we take people in all the European regions on board? And why is this important? It is important because Europe is a space of freedom of movement. In Europe, we have freedom of movement of people, of goods, of services, and of capital. In order to make the most of the single market, we need to make sure that all regions have the potential to develop, that people are skilled, that they receive the right training, the right education in all regions in Europe, that we connect Europe with, that we connect the regions of Europe with each other. That means infrastructure, the traditional infrastructure, but also the digital infrastructure. That we work across border, in cross-border projects, that we bring communities from two different neighboring countries together. Because of the single market, because of the movement of people, of enterprises, of goods, of services, it is important that we make sure that no region in Europe is left behind. It's clear that we are now in the process of fundamental economic transformation, and basically there are two transformations that are taking place in parallel. There is the green transition and there is the digital transition, one about which everyone talks and the other one about which not everyone talks, but the two of them are equally important, and we as EPP have to defend both, the green transition and the digital transition. And in the transition to the green economy, that was obvious yesterday as well in the speeches of Markus Söder, Friedrich Merz, and also during the panels. We as EPP lay emphasis on research, on innovation, on unleashing the potential which is in the regions, in the economy, in the private sector. We want to make sure that we create the framework so that enterprises, small and large, in all regions in Europe, feel confident and they can invest. Whenever there's a problem in Europe, socialists want to spend, and what they want to spend is public money. They want to spend people's money. Our priority is to create the right framework, institutions, education, healthcare, rule of law, judiciary, public administration, and the right legal framework for the private sector to be able to invest and to face these two transitions. Of course, one of the tools which we have at European level to make this possible is also the use of European funds, of European money, of the budget. And we have committed to spending 30% of EU funds in the upcoming years for the transition to the green economy. A bit less than 30% from the EU budget and 37% from the new created Next Generation EU package, so that on average we are at 30%. And upon the pressure of the EPP, it was also agreed that from this new fund, Next Generation EU, 20% goes into digital. So what I'm trying to say is that while everyone defends the green agenda, we were pretty much the only ones to defend the digital agenda in the beginning, and we have to continue doing so. Education will also be key. And yesterday, and this was very much thanks to Manfred and upon his initiative, we have all understood that agriculture is a key topic for us, and it will be a major battleground topic ahead of the European elections, and we need to be with the farmers. I dare to say that in addition to agriculture, education is also a core EPP topic, and we should not leave education ahead of the next elections to the left part of the house. Education is not just a social policy. Education is about creating the skills for the people to be able to strive. An educated citizen is a strong citizen, is a citizen which is in line with our EPP values, and it is a citizen who can produce, who can be useful for the economy, who can help the economy grow. And this is why yesterday showed us all that the link between skills, education, young people, and research, innovation, enterprises will be a key topic for the elections, and we have to occupy that. We were talking yesterday evening with the mayor of Cluj-Napoca here in the room with Emil Bock, and he was telling that for the growth of his city, the universities, they have two big universities, a technical university and a generalistic one. They are essential for attracting investors, and I believe this is also something that we should discuss today and put at the core of our manifesto. Today, we will also be discussing with our guest speakers about the economic sectors where the transformation is particularly big. Automotive sector, for example. Cars in the future will be manufactured in a different way than they were manufactured in the past. So people will need different skills. Cars in the future will have less spare parts, so they will need less people to build them, but people will have to be differently skilled and higher skilled. This is also something that with our two guest speakers we will be discussing this morning. We have with us two, I believe, excellent guest speakers, and I propose that we invite them on stage with us and we start the discussion. We have with us Sven Schulze, who is the Minister of Economy in Sachsen-Anhalt, one of the regions here in Germany, and before that he was our colleague in the European Parliament. He served as member of the Parliament. And we have Olgierd Geblevich, who is the voice of local and regional elected officials in the EPP. He's the chairman of the EPP group in the Committee of the Regions, himself elected as president of West Pomerania region in Poland. So I invite them both with us here on stage so that we can start. Thank you very much. So on this note, I propose that in a very informal way among friends, we give our two speakers the chance for their introductory remarks, starting with Sven Schulze. Sven, we would like to hear from you, of course, as Minister of Economy, where you see the challenges for enterprises, for peoples in your region. Your region is, of course, a European region which has undergone fundamental change, being in the eastern part of Germany. Which was the structural change that your region has gone through? Where are the challenges now? What do you do to succeed in this transition to a green and the digital economy? And also, what are the incentives that you are creating to investors in your region? Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. Siegfried, it's allowed to speak in German? I asked because I'm in Bavaria and so it's... Bayerisch beherrsche ich nicht. Also erstmal vielen Dank, Manfred und Siegfried und all die anderen, die das organisiert haben, für die Einladung. Es ist eine Freude, wieder hier zu sein, viele ehemalige Kollegen zu sehen, gute Freunde zu treffen und bei der EVP zu sein, weil ich glaube, die EVP, die EPP, das ist die Partei, die wie keine andere für Europa steht und vor allem auch für die Regionen steht. Und meine Region, die ich jetzt vertreten darf als Minister, übrigens nicht nur für Wirtschaft, sondern auch für Landwirtschaft.
I represent my region for the economy and agriculture, and also as party chairman. It is right in the middle of Europe. It is centrally located, and Europe was always, for me, France on the one side and Poland on the other side as neighboring countries. I never saw Europe as a northwest, east, south thing. And my region, the whole of the East, we also have other colleagues from the east of Germany that have positions of responsibility. And we are in a situation that is akin to that of 30 years ago, where there was a major transformation process, and we have experienced the complete disappearance of something one could never have imagined, like a state, such as the German Democratic Republic, which was a good thing. What people experience is that things can change very rapidly, and we shaped these 30 years well, with a lot of support from the European Union. Without the European internal market, for instance, our region wouldn't be in the situation it is today. And we are experiencing yet another metamorphosis. Now we have a lot of thousands of SMEs. We have a car industry. The subject of SMEs is very important, and they face the challenge of e-mobility because it's going to mean fewer jobs in the farming sector. We have a lot of things being imposed upon farmers, and our duty as a party is to flank people. What is decided in Brussels and in our federal capital in Berlin might seem logical at first sight, but we have to talk to the population from. If we don't get the people on board, we will experience what we have seen also in Eastern Germany and other places of Europe. When that happens, people veer to the extreme left or the extreme right from the middle. In my region, the second strongest party is an extreme right-wing party. And we were able to prevent the worst from happening as the CDU. The CDU is still the strongest party, and for as long as I will be party chairman. But the reason for that is that we are close to the population. We discuss all transformation processes with the population. As a former MEP, I'm very grateful to have been a member of the parliament for 7 years. I'm very grateful for the fact that I partook in numerous debates where very useful ideas were exchanged. I decided to go back to my country to take up an office there, but I did say to myself, it would be wrong to ignore what is going on in Brussels and solely focus on the region. And I'm very fortunate that there is a committee of the regions there, and my land government has asked me to represent my region there a year and a half ago, and that is the institution where you can look and place a sharper focus on a particular region, more so than an MEP at the European Parliament might. And there is very good cooperation with the EPP group at the European Parliament, and between that and the EPP group at the Committee of the Regions. That's very important in light of 2024, because what we must strive to be is the strongest party by far. If we give over power to others that are seizing the opportunity to have more and more influence, it's going to be much more difficult to govern regions, and it's going to lead to the fact that people will turn away from politics.
Danke Sven.
Thank you very
Sven.
much.
We're moving now to Olgerd, as we said, the voice of local and regional elected leaders in the EPP. And we have all seen over the course of recent years how the EPP group in the Committee of Regions has gained more importance in our political family due to the fact that they are active, but also due to the fact that we understood that also in times when maybe at national level, politically, we are challenged in some member states, the backbone of the EPP rests at local and regional level. And even when we lose maybe a government, we don't lose the mayors. And the mayors remain the main driver of the EPP force in difficult times in many member states of the Union. And this is why it is important to involve them in the political life of the EPP, to listen to them. And this is also why we're looking forward to hearing from you, Olgerd. And our main question is, what do local and regional elected leaders expect from the European level, from Brussels? How can we support you in this transition, in this transformation? Where do you see the challenges and what are the commonalities? Because you are the president of our group in the Committee of the Regions, you work with mayors from everywhere in Europe. What are the common challenges? What are the commonalities?
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to take advantage from this opportunity to thank Manfred Weber, our president, to thanks Thanasis, to thanks whole presidency. Firstly, to organizing such a format of political assembly. That's right now I really feel that it is political assembly. It is not blah blah assembly. It is real political assembly with strong content, with strong political vision, and with a clear political message. And it is beneficial. I think that second beneficial thing for all of us that we is a very wise decision that we decided to organize it outside the Brussels bubble. And from meeting to meeting, I see the progress in our work, and it is that our voice is really right now appreciated and expected. Even before this meeting, we read an articles that there is expected position regarding farmers, regarding innovation. I think that we should act in such a way and work together in such a way. And of course, on behalf of the EPP group and on behalf of our strong representatives today, the Sven and Thomas Schmidt is as a German strong part. Emil Bock is sitting with us representing Romania. I cannot see Apostolos Titsikostas from Greece, but we have the representation from south to the Anders Knappe and Jelena Drenjanin from Sweden. So we are very happy that we are taken on board as a local and regional leaders, and right now that we can share our regional and local positions, because as you mentioned, fortunately right now we are regaining a power in Europe, in country by country, and I hope that this year it will be the Poland and Spain as joined to the Finland. We are doing our best in Poland to join to the to our family on the national level. But still, in 70% of the countries, we are based on the local and regional dimension. And I think that we are the only one European party who understands that Europe, the European politics have three layers. This European vision, national, and this local and regional, close to the people. And one, I think that it is very, very good for our and very valuable for our discussion is that we can deliver some kind of opinions from the ground, because even our yesterday's discussion regarding the farmers, we have to having some vision. We have to always analyze how it works on the ground, how it affects ordinary people, how it affects our cities, our villages, our regions. So I hope that thanks to our good cooperation, we can actually strengthen whole EPP family. EPP as a people's party based on the ground, working with the people on the daily basis. Having said that, I would like to tell you that you know that what is the most valuable in our work in the European Committee of Regions? That it is that we can exchange our experiences, because it is, of course, for all of us obvious that we are in different corner of Europe. We are have a different experiences. Sometimes we are facing the different challenges, but thanks to this valuable exchange, we can be more successful in our cities and our regions. And maybe right now I would like to share with you my personal experiences, because right now I live this position as a EPP president in the Committee of Regions, and I go back to my region, to West Pomerania region in Poland. And I would like to tell you a little bit how it works on the ground in my region. My region, it is a region located on the northwest part of Poland. It is located on the Baltic Sea with 180 kilometers of a beautiful Baltic seashore, and bordering with Germany, with the two German lands, the Mecklenburg-Vorpommern and Brandenburg, 180 kilometers as well, Polish-German border. Relatively big in terms of area, because 23,000 square kilometers. It is more than, for example, Slovenia. Not very densely populated, less than 2 million of inhabitants, but still, but I have to share with you that it was the region which went through the transition in a very, very badly way, because historically, during the before 1989, in my region, we had huge state-owned farming companies and huge maritime industry, mainly shipyards. And unfortunately, in the 90s, both collapsed. And when I was young, a lot of my friends decided to leave, to go to Ireland, to Norway, or to Warsaw, for example. So because we had something like 30% in the top of unemployment rate. So we had 100, even when I was elected as a president, it was 13 years ago. So I'm a relatively experienced president of a region. I'm sometimes kidding that I'm some kind of dinosaurs in the regional politics in Poland. But it was something like 130,000 registered unemployed people. So it was, for me, it was obvious, it was clear that economy, that investments, it is something what is really necessary. And we created the good investment offer. It was, of course, not only plot, but a lot of incentives for companies who decided to invest. We analyzed our potential. We assessed that this green transition can be a real window of opportunity for our region, because our region is, as I said, not very densely populated, and it is very windy. So right now we managed to absolutely change our economy and rebuild our economy. And right now I can say that we have three pillars of our economy: green energy production, but not only windmills which are producing the energy, but we have producers of blades, of turbines, of foundations for a construction of wind farms. Then we have, as we are relatively well located, very proximate to the wealthy Scandinavian market and to the German market and the Polish market as well. So we managed to create some kind of logistic hub, especially right now when the e-commerce is growing and growing. A lot of companies from e-commerce sector decided to invest money in our region. So it is second huge part of logistics, e-commerce of our economy. And then third part, it is tourism, but tourism connected with innovation, with startups, with young entrepreneurship. And I'm very happy that that after 15 years, when we are in power as a EPP and as a civic platform in our region, we managed to rebuild our region. We managed to build the region with a good perspective for young people, that it is worth to stay there, here, because you can find a good job. You can live in a very nice region, you know, on the seashore with a lot of lakes. 35% area is covered by forests, so very beautiful one. We are building the most ambitious path, the bike routes system in Poland, so people can spend the free time relaxing, and it is of course some kind of attraction for. So that's why a lot of tourists visited us, because we want to be very active in the free time as well. So you are cordially invited to West Pomerania to see region, to see how it works on the ground when EPP is in power.
Okay, thank you. And look, the transition to the green economy was mentioned by both of our speakers, and it's a recurring topic. I believe we have to discuss it in a very concrete matter. What does it mean for the people on the ground, and what changes does it really bring with it? And this is also why my first question to Sven, because in your region and in the whole of Eastern Germany, I mean, in most of Eastern Germany, coal mining used to be important and a sector in the past, and the question is, how do you manage the transition in those areas? What does it mean for the people? How do we make sure that they find employment, that they are skilled? And how do we manage the transition to renewables, particularly hydrogen offers opportunities in Eastern Germany? What do you do also as public elected officials to attract investors, research in these new renewable areas, particularly in hydrogen?
Ja, das ist ein ganz wesentliches Thema meiner Arbeit, der Transformationsprozess, der dort stattfindet. Das ist nicht nur in meiner Heimat,
not only in my home, but also in Saxony, in Brandenburg, also in parts of North Rhine-Westphalia for coal mining. Coal was used in many areas to make electricity. And there are a number of strategies in Europe. The federal government, the German government, is supporting a strategy to leave coal for electricity production fairly quickly, which means it's a big transformation for the region and also for the people living there. It means, you need to say so honestly, when you hear things like that, as it means fear. People say, what is going to happen to my job? Imagine there are some families where the grandfather worked in a coal mine, the father and the son too. And actually people were planning to continue working in this industry. So you need to talk to the people and say, don't be afraid, we will find new ideas, we have new ideas. One thing where Europe helped is the JTF, the Just Transition Fund, that we could use for this. If I'm allowed to say, the rules are very complex and it's a bit complicated to apply it locally than what people in the European Commission or Parliament imagine, but we'll manage. So this helps us. It shows that in Brussels we didn't forget the challenges that exist in the regions. What is much more difficult is when you talk to the people there, is they say, what are the other consequences when you leave a form of energy like coal to produce electricity, also leaving nuclear power in Germany, abandoning nuclear power. What does that mean for the region as a whole? Saxony-Anhalt, my home, is one of the regions with the densest chemical industry. We have the top chemical companies in my region. We have the biggest chemical park in the whole of Germany in my home. It's not Bayer in Leverkusen or BASF. It's Leuna in Saxony-Anhalt, and it was a European decision by Helmut Kohl at the time, together with the French, that the Total refinery would go to Saxony-Anhalt. That was important for our region, and the whole chemical industry was based on that, and this chemical industry needs energy supply, electricity that we guaranteed actually in recent years by using coal and by using other sources of energy. And I must say, Germany, the Federal Republic of Germany, is the only European country where the access to energy is not guaranteed 100% in the coming years. And that affects people, the people working in these companies, in the chemical industry, in the car industry. People working there are not afraid that their companies are not strong enough for worldwide competition. What they are afraid of is that political decisions, whether in Brussels or Berlin, these decisions will indirectly make them lose their jobs, or that the jobs are not safe. And that is what we need to discuss with the people now. And this is particularly for the German government, which is an important player at European level. In the Council, I would expect more realism on their side, and that's what the people tell me. Of course, we want to do this transition. We understand that at a certain point in time we should give up coal to produce electricity, but we would like that you, politicians, understand that we cannot support this right away, and with all the things decided by the politicians, say that's great what you've done, we need an explanation first, and maybe we didn't do that enough, and there is fear. There's fear among the people. And the second question, and this is missing in our discussion, I suppose that this will also be decisive for the European election campaign in 2024. What about the competitiveness later on? What we in Saxony-Anhalt, what we built there, it's there and in Europe with the policy we're having, will that be enough to keep us competitive in the next 15 to 20 years compared to the rest of the world? Let me just add one other element to the discussion now. I've just come back from the United States. I was in Washington, in Silicon Valley, in Phoenix, and there were a number of topics on my agenda which also are linked directly or indirectly with Europe. We in Europe were always very clever. We said Europe is the only region where a transformation process, also in the climate sector, is being implemented in industry, and that is supported, by whatever ways, depending on the European countries. We support that transition. When I look at the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, where now a huge nation have a similar topic on their agenda. They are a huge competitor for us. And the people, we read this in the papers, not only what, as you just said, when not only regional papers in Germany, but the media generally talk about this. And it's only logical that people say we have expectations towards the politicians to take our fear away, offer solutions for these challenges before us. And that's what politicians need to do. And therefore, a topic like abandoning coal, that's a very small topic. Only 4,000 people are concerned. That's no problem at all. For all of those 4,000, have a new job or they go into retirement. No problem for these 4,000 people. But I do have 40, 50, 100,000 people in subsequent companies who are 30, 40, 50 years old who say, please explain, take my fear away, that what I built here over the past 30 years is not falling apart because political decisions are taken in Brussels or in Berlin and are different than what they're supposed to be, and because they're influenced by ideology and not by logic, and that we might lose our great competitiveness that we have in the European internal market. It's the best instrument we ever invented, the European internal market, which gives us a huge advantage in terms of competitiveness. That is being destroyed by ideological decisions. That's why we are afraid, and this is why perhaps it's possible that elections turn out differently than what we would expect. That's currently the discussion I'm having in my home place.
let's stay with this important topic of competitiveness, which Sven opened because it is another key EPP topic. We can only safeguard the high social standards that we have here in Europe better than on any other continent on the world if our economy remains strong, remains competitive, if our goods are still demanded on global markets. And it's clear that overall at European and national level we have the obligation to provide stable, predictable and low energy prices, because if our enterprises are facing higher energy prices, much higher than in China, India, other parts of the world, it will be difficult for them to remain competitive. Education, research, innovation, we know also what EPP stands for and what we should do at European level. The question is, what do you do also at local and regional level? Olga, you were describing before that your region fundamentally transformed economically. What do you do as a regional president there to make sure that you attract investors into your region, that you remain competitive and that they can produce on the ground in urban but also in rural areas goods which are demanded on the European market, throughout the single market and also on global markets, competitiveness at local level?
I will start with some kind of political statement that I think that for all of us it is obvious that what differs us from as a EPP, from socialists, from Greens, is that we always, when we do something, we always talk with the people or with the companies to find some good solutions, to find some compromise. The Greens or socialists knows better, so they don't need to talk with the people. They always order something. It is the main division, and I think that it should be always underlined on all levels, in the European, national, and the local level as well. Second thing is that we as a EPP are very pragmatic. It means that we don't have to be convinced to be, for example, greener. We know that we have to be greener, but we do it in a very, very pragmatic, very feasible way. So right now, when we have this Green Deal, we treat it as a challenge. And I feel that people from Green, from Socialists, treat it as a religion, some kind of new religion. It is very dangerous because when we implement our challenges on the ground, we have to be aware that there are not only pros in this transition, that we have to mitigate the bad effects for a people, for a company, and for our businesses. And coming back to my region, we are the best example that we even don't need Greens to be green region. That we are the green region because we are in power, and we decided to be green voluntarily. And we do it in very pragmatic way, and we perceive these green goals as an opportunity for our business, for lower energy prices, and so on and so on. As I mentioned before, in my region right now, it is leading region in Poland. We produce 20% of green energy in Poland. We have 3 gigabytes in my region, 15 giga in whole Poland. It means that right now we are the biggest green producer, and when we compare it with our energy, regional energy consumption, it turned out that this green energy covers 83% of our consumption right now. Still, we have a good perspective to develop. But what is the most important for us? It is that having the green energy in my region, it is not only the cheaper energy, It is not only property taxes for communities, because in Poland, in Polish system, whole property taxes goes to communes, to municipalities, directly to the budgets. So it is really very, very beneficial on the ground, because people can build, for example, the mayors in the small cities can build new roads for people, new school for people, thanks to green energy. But as I mentioned earlier, right now we have some kind of green energy hub in my region. We have producers of blades, we have producers of turbines. We made an inventory of all lands located on the water, because right now we see huge progress in the offshore farms, and 2 weeks ago, something like that, the global potentate Vestas announced that they are going to build the new production plant, the biggest one in Europe, in my region, next to the water, because because they want to operate from this point on the Baltic Sea and the North Sea as well. So right now I can estimate that more than 20,000 of people have a job in this sector. We had to educate them because new competences are needed. So we, together with the mayors in the region, reshaped our education system to have more people skilled in competences which are needed. But on the other hand, we can I can tell you a lot of about competitiveness. But on the other hand, we are facing the same problem like Sven in Saxony-Anhalt. We have a big chemical industry in the region, and we have to think how to face this challenge, not to lose few thousand of jobs. So I think that we have to work hand in hand on this European level, but on this local level, to find a good solution, not to lose any competitive business, because still chemical industry can be cleaner, greener, and still can be competitive. But we have to find a good approach, and we have to be in the direct contact, we have to discuss with them, we have to be sometimes flexible, very pragmatic. And it is, I think that it should be the message from the bottom, that, okay, let's have a vision on the European level, seeing big picture, but we have to go into details to our daily life in our cities, in our regions, and in our entrepreneurs, because finally I think that it is something, it is all about responsibility. We as a EPP always have been responsible, and we still have to be the most responsible political power in Europe.
You mentioned, Olgierd, how the tax revenues are collected and remain at local, at regional level in Poland. This shows how important also the reform of the public administration done in Poland was, and it shows how, in spite of a Eurosceptic government in Warsaw, you can still develop the regions, because you have the competencies and you have the tools and the resources, because the public reform administration enabled this for you as regions.
Yes, so only short remark. Once again, we have strong regions and strong cities in Poland, thanks to Jerzy Buzek, former Prime Minister, and right now our colleague from European Parliament. And it's really this independence of cities and regions. It is something what really infuriates our populists in Warsaw. But thanks to this, we have some really independency, and it is something what is really very, very valuable, because it is something what empower people on the ground, really, because people know that in their municipalities they can organize something, they can have some benefits if they, for example, if we invest together in a windmill farm or in some industrial park or something like that. So very close connection. So I think that the good structure it is really something very valuable. But once again, this process of decentralization was only the possible because we were in power. Right now we have process of recentralization.
Let's open now up, dear colleagues, for questions, remarks from your side. And Manfred, please.
Yes, thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Yep.
It's not working. Test. Now it's working. Thank you so much. And you both are in a very perfect sense, the People's Party representatives. You're always speaking a bit close to people, explaining things, transmitting things, but also doing things together, responsibility. So I like this very much, and we really have to upgrade this in the party. One concrete point, you know that we are having a lot of discussions about rural areas, cities, the two worlds. It's a deepened split now inside of our societies. So on the Committee of Region, in your regions, how do you assess this? How do you bridge this? What are the concrete ideas? Because that is really a worry that we have there more and more divide in our society. So one concrete consideration.
From my point of view, I'm more than happy that yesterday we adopted our position regarding to the protecting the farmers. But we discussed it internally, that it is not only about the farmers. It is all about rural areas, when people are feel that they are left behind, that they are living in the poorer, worst reality, and it is. And for example, when we talk about green transition in transport, we only think about the transport in the cities. We are putting only money to the green transport in the cities. Okay, railways. For example, in Poland, I'm responsible for regional railways. Okay, I made it clear. We, as a first region in Poland, have completely new fleet of vehicles, of new trains, even when we have not electrified the lines, rail lines in my region. I bought the hybrid with double engines trains to produce less pollutions. But still, I'm facing with some kind of exclusion, transport exclusion of people living in the countryside, because not everywhere we have trains, and we cannot put any money on this green transport in this area. I think that we should think, on one hand, how to build some kind of good examples to allow all those people to participate in, to go to the city, to go to the doctor, go to the theater, but in a very green and economic way. And it is not a topic in Europe. It is in Europe we are only talking about cities, and I think that it should be our agenda. I have a good example because I know that everything have to be organized in the economic way. So we launched some kind of pilot project to organize some transport on demand. Then people in the very sparsely populated areas can order bus, and I can easily imagine that if I buy the fleet of electric buses, I can organize such a system, but it is not supported at all on European level. So I think that we should be more focused on those people who are living in the countryside and who have a right to live on the equal footing like people in the cities. And it is so not only farmers. A lot of people live there. They are not farmers, but they have a full right to live in the equal footing.
Thank you. Sven, your thoughts on the urban-rural divide?
Ja, ich will nur ganz kurz zwei Sätze dazu sagen. Ich glaube, man sollte eines nicht machen, man sollte nicht denken, dass jeder, der auf dem Land wohnt,
everybody living in a rural area expects that they have exactly the same conditions as someone living in an urban area. And the reverse is also true. Some people decide to live in Munich and others want to live out in the country. There are advantages and disadvantages to that. I think that what we must say as a responsible politician, when you talk about with people in rural areas, you have to talk about similar conditions, not the same thing. Some things are very important. Ambulance services. Someone having a heart attack in the country expects an ambulance as fast as someone living in a city. And we have other, people have different wishes. What is a problem, and that needs to be discussed. Sometimes decisions are taken where rural people, the rural population are being used for things that people living in urban areas. We have a lot of wind turbines. I'll give you an example. We have a lot. We already have those wind turbines. Some federal landers are still waiting for their first one. In Baden-Württemberg, we have a green minister-president for years, and there isn't even a start of a wind energy. And where in our land, that's been around for 20 years, and people living in rural areas are saying, if we're going to have a wind turbine casting a shadow on our gardens, we want a payback for that in some way, because we don't even need that wind energy. I try to discuss with urban dwellers what advantages they draw from a rural area as well. I said, during the coronavirus crisis, the shelves were packed with food for you to eat. The people in rural areas continue to work to be able to supply food. On the 1st of January every year, I have a huge tractor parade. We have several thousand tractors that go to the state capital, Magdeburg, in a procession with lights and everything. And people are very enthusiastic, and it's in the media as well. There's a conversation going on, and some people like the fact that they can have a bigger plot of land and a bigger place to live in the countryside for the same price as a small apartment in the city. So we have to talk to people. We mustn't equalize everything. We have to try and balance out any disadvantages there might be without making any empty promises that can't be fulfilled.
We are now taking your question, your remarks. Emil Bock first, then Carlo Ressler, then colleague.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate our two colleagues from the European Committee of the Regions for their pragmatic approach concerning the green transition. I have a particular question. What is necessary for a successful green and digital transition in the automotive supply industry and in automotive regions? Because my colleagues, Sven is working on a document for the European Committee of the Regions. And here also I want to emphasize about this gigantic revolution in the car industry, because as we know, by 2035, no new cars that are running on petrol or diesel will be allowed in the Union to be sold. And this is a huge impact on our regions, on our jobs. And this is a very EPP topic, because the automotive industry accounts for more than 7% of the EU GDP, and currently employs more than 15 million Europeans, equivalent of 6.1 of total employment in the EU. And we know that one job lost in the car industry means 10 to 12 jobs lost on the chain. In my city, Cluj-Napoca, Romania, we are working on the supply chain with Bosch, and we are afraid that we are going to lose a lot of jobs due to the new transition. So what I'm telling about, that we need a just transition mechanism for car industry and automotive regions, as it is for coal transition mechanism, in order to be sure that we are going to keep our competitiveness as an industry, and to protect jobs on the chain in the car industry, because the gigantic revolution definitely is going to take a lot of actions. The second question is, how can we help our regions to be prepared for this gigantic transition? Why? Because I'm giving you just one date. By 2030, we are going to have 30 million electric vehicles on our roads. That means that we need 7 million of charging points. In this very moment, we have 350,000 charging stations, and 70% of them are in Germany, Holland, and France. So we need to support all the regions in order to have this infrastructure to be prepared for this gigantic revolution, which definitely is correct. But we need to have an approach, because especially having in mind that we are in front of 2024 elections, European elections, people are worried, and we need to have a very clear message for them, for industry, and in the same time for jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I think the questions raised by...
I will start.
Yeah, my initial idea was to collect, but I think the questions raised by Emil Bock are so important and comprehensive. Let's give the two speakers the chance now to react, please.
Also, ich denke gerade der Umbau in der
I think that the transition in the automobile industry, it is the industry in Europe where we have led for years, not only German companies, but numerous companies across Europe have contributed to the fact that we're so good. It is one of the most important subjects for the next year, and I'm honored to be a rapporteur at the Committee of the Region. I'm very busy, of course, but it is something that I want to spend time on and to intensively look into the issue, because I worked as an engineer in the car industry for 10 years, and I have a good idea of what is happening. I see the chances and the opportunities, but also the risks. The biggest mistake one can make is that we're not open technologically speaking, and we shouldn't be concentrating on one single technology. That would be a mistake, especially when one isn't in the capacity to calculate or to gauge what would happen if one would only focus on one singular source of energy. And I'm very happy for the work done by the EPP in the European Parliament that have very logical arguments on the basis of support of their member states. We have to be open to technologies if we are to make this a success, because it means that intelligent engineers are in a capacity to develop further technologies or to invent new things that would contribute to the solving and the overcoming of challenges that we face. Secondly, realism. There's talk about charging points, e-mobility. Even in my modest federal land, and I'm not talking about trucks, if all regular cars wanted to switch to electricity, we would need need at least half of the currently available electricity just to have e-vehicles run. And if the chemicals industry switches to electricity, we would need 2.5% more than what is currently available in both these areas. And we're talking about switches to electricity in other industrial sectors as well. It is unrealistic to place all our bets on this particular form of energy. E-fuels is going to become important. Now, what about the infrastructure and charging points? Now, the federal government was saying very arrogantly, we're going to manage, but it would be a mistake not to look at our European neighbours and see, are they going to manage in Poland, in Romania, and Portugal? Does one even want that? That is the discussion we have to have. Another point, we're not alone on this world. We have an industry in China and in the USA. There are developments there that we must follow closely. If we want to be competitive, we don't want Volkswagen factories to be in China. Now, we have autonomous driving. Autonomous driving, I believe, is going to take a long time. I think that in big cities there will be in autonomous driving. Last week I was in San Francisco. In the middle of the day, we have fully autonomous cars in the middle of the day, and there's a company, Cruise, similar to Uber and Lyft. They drive fully autonomously. People leave the car waits until it can go into the flow of traffic. Now, why am I talking about that? Because people are saying it's going to take very long. No, developments are very fast, and engineers and technicians should be used for their practical knowledge. We shouldn't lecture to them and impose upon them what they should be developing. We should be listening to them on developing trends, and so we have to be very, very much with our finger on the pulse when it comes to technological issues at the EPP.
You see that Sven is real expert on that topic. Nothing to add. So
we have many other questions to be added. Carlo.
Good morning, and thank you to the colleagues, and also congratulations really for the successes in the development of your regions. I would like to add another transition in this equation, which I really see as, unfortunately, as the limiting factor for many regions, but for Europe as a whole. And this is the demographic transition in which we really see the real danger of almost population collapse in many regions. I don't know how the situation is in yours, but I see that the problem of aging, of low natality, depopulation, but also of the shrinking proportion of the European population in the global population, and all these issues will become even more evident in the years to come, but they are also creating a powerful political narrative, especially for those who are trying to attack us. This is definitely a European issue, but at the same time it requires national and regional action, and it is just becoming really impossible to ignore. I fully understand it's a very complex issue. People freely and independently in the end decide on the number of children they want to have. But I really believe that on all the levels we need to do more to support every family, and I would just like to hear maybe your opinions and thoughts on this really pertinent and important issue, which is also changing our societies.
Thank you, Carlo. Colleague here in third row, and then Tom.
Thank you. Good morning, Antonio Rodrigues from Portugal. Thank you for sharing your views with us. The question that I have has to do with the name of our session, with innovating Europe with strong regions, but in a different perspective. How can we transform Europe? How can we change Europe with the strong regions? Because if we are just looking at the regions, we will not look for the entire Europe. So we should find a way, and the key word would be share the development of regions with the other parts of the country, but of course with all of Europe, from one side to the other side of Europe. And more than this, that is, how can we develop our own problems if we are only looking at the development of our local development? We will never go far. When we still think about borders between member states, we will keep on developing only the countries and not turning and transforming the other part of Europe that we need to transform as a whole. That's why EPP has a political platform. That's why EPP has several proposals. And final question, in this development, do you think that we could have proposals, political proposals, even for the next elections, only sharing or having a political proposal for regions together, side by side, instead of looking just for a region inside of a country, but from different countries, in order to show to the electors that EPP has a global proposal all through Europe and not just to join the proposals of each country into all together?
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for your excellent introductory remarks. Tom van Ekendare from Christian Democrats of Belgium. Olgeert, thank you for giving the visibility to the Committee of the Regions that we need. I think the Committee of the Regions often is being labeled as the invisible part of the European institutions, whereas it really has its value. Now, what I see and what I feel is that the role of mayors is becoming ever more prominent. We have the Convent of Mayors, we have Eurocities, which is very visible. How could the Committee of the Regions eventually reform itself so as to make sure that the mayors, in fact, don't take over the work that the Committee of the Regions is doing? Sven, question to you. You have now Intel coming with a major investment in Sachsen-Anhalt. Congratulations for this. I think a lot of other regions are envying Sachsen-Anhalt for this. But it proves also how big the competition is between the different regions in Europe to try and attract big companies. You just spoke about the chemical cluster in Sachsen-Anhalt and how this back in the day was a major decision between Kohl and the French. Now, it's a long shot question, but shouldn't we, in the long term, start thinking in a European way about where we want to do clusters in Europe with certain technologies, where we can do things more efficiently, rather than each of us thinking in regional terms or national terms and trying to take away from each other economic activity? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Let's collect all remaining questions. The colleague here just in front of Tom, and then please.
Yeah. Hello, good morning, everybody. It's Cristina Storoni from Les Républicains. I just would like to ask you a question. One of the biggest problems in France is the decline of our health system, which remains in France very centralized and based on hospital. So one of the causes, of course, the lack of doctors. Okay. So we have now medical desert in every region in France. So I would like to know, first, are you facing the same problem? And secondly, what do you think that we can do at the regional level to guarantee an equal access to the health for our citizens? Thank you.
Thank you. Yourself?
Yes. Hello, my name is Marwan. I come from Lebanon. Thank you for this enriching debate. Actually, we believe that regions are the backbone of any economy. And unfortunately, in Lebanon, only a few weeks ago, the parliament passed an unconstitutional law to postpone local elections, which were supposed to happen in 2 days, because they didn't agree on, corruption as usual. So, but my question and my comment is the following. Who are you looking as a partner for the development of not just the regions, but the economies and the sectors that we've been talking about for the past 2 days? I know you cannot go to China. They are your competitors. You cannot go to the US. They are the competitors. And many other countries are currently the competitors of the EU. But one country and one region that can be your partner is the MENA region, and especially Lebanon. And actually one important statistics about my country is that we rank 7 in overall education quality in the world, and we are 3rd in mathematics and science. So this is something I think that Europe should capitalize on. We speak 3 languages. We speak French, we speak English and Arabic as well. And we have a very strong human capital that Europe can use and European companies can use for their research, for the high level of manufacturing that they need in order to advance European technological advancement and to remain on the edge of the sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you. One last question here, and then Sven and Olgerd for the answers.
Hello. I have another question regarding what you have been discussing. I live in the city of Munich, and I think there is a new strategy, or maybe not so new strategy, happening in many of the big cities, at least in Germany, that wherever there is a green or a green-red government, their decision is to get the whole cities car-free. In Munich, that's what they're trying to do. They start with a small circle, they make it bigger and bigger, and their plan is to have no cars in Munich, which of course has 2 results. First of all, there are going to be less cars sold. Their plans, I always say, I mean, if you say, make plans for the roads, it doesn't matter if they're electrical roads, 100 or normal. You still need the same system, but they want to get it out. And people will not buy cars, garages will not be built, and this is going to influence all the working markets around very, very much. And I doubt if BMW is going to sell so many bicycles as the green ones for everybody to use to have economical impact.
Thank you. Thank you. So many questions, of course, on demography, on how do we connect the regions and put together a European strategy, on the clusters from Tom, on the reform of the Committee of the Regions, on health, cooperation with our neighboring countries, and then also on how do we make our cities greener but without affecting the economy and the jobs in there. Sven and then Olgerd.
Also, ich bin ehrlich gesagt erstmal sehr froh.
Honestly, I'm very happy that Europe has so many different regions. It would be a bad thing that we'd all be the same. When I had the possibility of working in Brussels, I learned things that I'm still using in my work today, the best practice model. What is working very well somewhere, and what can I replicate in my home region, in my work? Of course, we work together at a European level. When we discuss the chemicals industry, we have clusters and networks where we work together. We have automotive networks. And I think it is incumbent upon us to see how we can link up regions together. Perhaps if you want to do away with borders, there is no region like Europe where borders have been done away with. There is competition amongst us, but it's not as brutal as it is in other places in the world. What about the American states? How competitive they are amongst themselves. Every legislation that is enacted here has been agreed upon previously by the member states. And when an individual member state says this legislation coming from Brussels is going to be negative, everybody sits together around a table and tries to find a solution. And we've been very good at that. We have fed in the challenges that the regions are facing into the Brussels debate. Now, for some regions in Europe, this is a major challenge. The aging of the population and new challenges related to that. And they are scared and justifiably seesaw. So when they hear words like automation and artificial intelligence, their understanding of that is different from young people, and we have to engage with them. When we see that people are going into a retirement system, and the systems differ from one country to another, and we have to discuss competitiveness disadvantages. In 2035, we'll have 25 to 30% fewer people available to work as we do now, because a lot of people will have gone into their well-deserved retirement. These are subjects that we must solve and discuss. And I'm not expecting the answer from Brussels. These are subjects that we have to deal with ourselves. These are important subjects to think about. We shouldn't think that for every problem that we can not solve in our regions, refer back to Berlin, my capital, or Brussels. We must be confident enough to try and solve problems alone. And we have Ursula von der Leyen, whom I pay tribute to, and they shouldn't do that either at European level. What they can't achieve and solve there and send them back to the regions. We have to have understand that some problems we will have to solve in the regions themselves, but the reverse is also true. We don't want Brussels overburdening us. And now, I am not someone who tells people in Brussels what to do, because I have huge faith in the European institutions and the people working there. When I was elected to the European Parliament in 2014, the biggest surprise to me, what great people we have at the European Parliament and the European Commission. These are very clever people indeed, and our duty is to bring together all these intelligent ideas for the best in Europe. Thank you.
A lot of very, very interesting questions and topics were raised. I will try to briefly go through it. So firstly, Karl, demography. Demography, you know, it is main challenge, I think, in Europe, including in Poland. But let me share with my experiences on that topic. As you surely know, our populistic government implemented some kind of very, very strict, the strictest law regarding abortion in Europe, and gave money to all parents for every kid. Huge money, relatively, in total. And opposite, in the Czech Republic, they decided to be more free and focus on infrastructure, on the shelters, of the kindergartens, of the protection. They are cooperating with the local and regional authorities. And what is the result? In Poland right now we have the less number of newborn babies, and in Czech Republic it is the highest rate. So I think that we. Of course, it is different in different countries, but I think that it will be much smarter to invest this money, to give this money to the municipalities to build good infrastructure, to help people to come back, for example, to work, especially ladies, and not to force them to have babies. Certainly. So it is. I think that some kind of process of decentralization can be more beneficial if we are going to face this huge challenge. Coming to our Portuguese and Belgian friends, I would like to answer to both colleagues in the same way. That I think that in Europe we need the good partnership. In political term and in institutional term as well. Good partnership, good network, in my opinion, means that we should create policy and build policy together, European level, not only with national level, because we know that on the national level, you know, in many countries we have populists in power, and they are only blaming Europe about everything, and they are not solving problems. They are only thinking how to keep up the power. I think that it is our added value as a Committee of Regions, as a local regional authorities, that we can be connected directly to Europe. And how it works in EPP, that we are working hand in hand. It is our main value. So, I think that we should treat as an EPP that we are working together as an added value, and I'm very happy that Committee of Regions is more and more visible, because it was my mission, and I promised to our members that when I was elected that I will do my best to strengthen the Committee of Regions, to make it visible, not to have huge power, because we don't need a power. We have power in our cities and in our regions, but we want to help. We want to be. We want to give our opinion, our suggestion to improve European level. It is only our part of our job. So that's why we launched the Cinderella project, not because we need some huge power. We need some more resources to do it better, because we can be some kind of in this European structure, we can, as a Committee of Regions, can be very, very valuable part of Europe, creating of European politics. Then, if healthcare system, I think that it is challenged everywhere in every European countries, including my country. On the regional level, I have 13 healthcare institutions, mainly hospitals, but ambulances and so on and so on. And I know that it is not always it is a problem about money, but human resources are crucial right now. So we should, still we have a huge brain drain, and a lot of doctors are moving not only from Poland to Sweden, but from Poland to Canada, from different countries to USA. So we have to think how to encourage them to stay here, and on the other hand, we have to encourage young people to become nurses or doctors and so on and so on. I think that it is a common challenge, and maybe we should launch some kind of not very. The COVID pandemic shows that sometimes the healthcare, it is not only on the national case, that we should look at it on the European level, and maybe the human resources should be analyzed in this aspects to help, for example, through European Social Fund to strengthen these competences. And cooperation. It is all about the lack of resources, of human resources in Europe. So you see how huge potential it is, and we will love to work together with our neighbors as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Sven Olgerd. Thank you all for your participation. We have started the discussion today in the point of green transition. We have very fast learned that we need a strong economy to make that work. Competitiveness is key. Be open to new technologies, and we should not tell each other what to do. We should listen to each other. We should learn from each other and work together. Thank you very much. Back to our chairman for the next session.
Colleagues, thank you so much for this panel about being the party of mayors, of regional governors of the European Union. Thank you so much for this. And now, dear friends, we have the honor that the Prime Minister of Slovakia is with us. Eduard Heger, our friend, is online connected today. And we all know that after last year's Rotterdam Congress, we achieved a lot of good results on national level, where we won elections, and now we have in front of us for 2023 a lot of important elections, and one of them is Slovakia in September this year, where we have the next big test for our EPP family. Eduard, it's great to have you there as our Prime Minister, as EPP Prime Minister, now running, showing up a good perspective for the future of Slovakia. And you are the person, the symbol also for our main pillars, so a pro-European, a pro-transatlantic, a pro-Ukraine approach, and also a pro-rule of law approach. That is what you are standing for, what you are fighting there, together with all our friends and parties there in Slovakia. And I have to say that you are picking up the fight against Fico again. He is exactly the opposite of what we believe in, and that is what you show with great courage. So that's why it's great to have you among us. I invite you to take the floor to make an address to the Political Assembly.
Dear Manfred, dear friends, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on this floor. I apologize, I cannot be present there in person, and I very much appreciate that we could do it through online. Right now we're in a situation, and we've been in this situation basically the whole 3 years after COVID started in Slovakia and after our government came in place. Great turbulences, I would say, in the political arena, and that's why I had to stay in Slovakia. But as you Manfred started, yes, I would like to proclaim from this place that Slovakia stands on the values of European Union, stands on the values of democracy, of freedom, of a rule of law, and we see that these are not values that we can take for granted. Slovakia, as a direct neighbor to Ukraine, is watching and closely feeling the fight for values in Ukraine. And that makes us even more aware that we should never take these values for granted, as you said. And Slovakia, as a direct member of Ukraine, is also under strong attack of Russian propaganda. And unfortunately, the propaganda is so strong and it's kind of unique in the European Union that, we see that extreme parties are picking up on the Russian propaganda messages. Unfortunately, here in Slovakia, the former 3-time Prime Minister, Robert Fico, is the main lead of these messages that come from the Russian propaganda. So that makes it even more difficult, and it's been so since the COVID, because we were, again, a country that was on the low of vaccination because Robert Fico was the leader of fighting against the measures that government applied in our country. And that's why many people also died in Slovakia, because they were misled by 3-time Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, who was basically very clearly fighting against all the measures against vaccinations, etc., etc. But I would like to express one very important value that taught us, not only in Slovakia, but I think in the whole European Union, taught us how important this value is for the future of Europe. And that's the value of unity. And especially even this crisis we experienced over the last 3 years. This crisis, I would say, especially in Slovakia, is a 30-year-old country. We're celebrating this year the 30th anniversary. And that's why when we look into our history, we see that all these crises were the biggest crisis in our history. And there was a big crisis. We all remember it from 2008 till 2011-12. But this was one crisis, economic crisis. And we have now 4 crises together. We had COVID, and the COVID haven't ended yet, and the war in Ukraine started during this process and caused energy crisis and also very high historical inflation, we could say, for the last 2 decades. But the reason why we were able to overcome as a Europe this all crisis, and we sit here today with, I think, very good results. Our economies are working, our employment rates are at a very good level, and we're able also deal with disconnection from the Russian oil and gas, etc. And the reason why we were able to succeed in all this was the unity among the member countries, unity that helped to find the right measures and help each other in overcoming this crisis where it hit the country, each country in its individual measure and aspect, but we were able to compare to fight with it and bring the measures in place that helped us to settle and overcome all these turbulent times. And I also see a very important aspect of the unity in supporting Ukraine. I think we all woke up and understood, and now all the member countries understand that it was a bad trade that we were so dependent on the Russian gas and oil for so long, seeing what Russia is doing in Georgia, what Russia is doing in Crimea, and still being dependent on the, as we were saying back then, cheap Russian gas and oil. Now we see there is no such thing as cheap Russian gas and oil, and we're paying very high price and actually paying back all those years. And we see that this is a lesson that we have to learn, and we learned, and we should never repeat this mistake, and rather never trade our values for cheap energies. And that's why this is a great finding, that Europe can be very strong, can be very active, can be reaching results that we probably didn't think, like 10 sanction packages over 1 year. And it's bringing a strong signal that Europe, when it's needed, can act very strongly and could really be and is a global player, global leader, and should use all these attributes in all the areas that we are still facing as great challenges ahead. I speak of climate change, for example. We said that with the disconnection and the diversification of the energy resources, there is also push for slowing it down on our ambition in the climate change. But we should not do that, because it's important for the future generations, and we should rather focus on speeding up the process of innovations and investments into innovations, into human capital, and finding new solutions together. And also Europe as a global player, not just on the territory of Europe, but in the global aspect, and speaking with the other regions of the world, how to work very strongly in reaching the goals in climate change in general. So from this, I'm very glad that the cooperation and unity showed as a strong foundation for further integration of European Union, which we strongly support, but also for fighting the challenges we have. As I said, Slovakia is under strong Russian propaganda, which is causing a great polarization. And as you mentioned, there is many elections in Europe this year, and there is also election on the 30th of September in Slovakia. And we see that we are fighting with this atmosphere of polarization even these days. And it's very sad that the Social Democrats were basically Smer, so the party of Robert Fico, is part of this fraction. But here in Slovakia, they very openly cooperate with the extreme representative of extreme parties. And this is really, I would say, even a shame that this kind of behavior is possible in a membership country. And this is the challenge that we are fighting, and we need your help as well as a European community to help us to protect the principles of democracy and freedom and rule of law in Slovakia and further develop them. So I'm very glad that we can discuss this together also on this forum. Very briefly about our party, Democrats, as you see the logo behind me, our party, Democrats, was started just recently, but it was built on the party Spolu, which is the member of 2019, and we decided to do this rebranding because of preparation of for the elections, and also because we made a project where several parties joined together. In total, 4 parties joined together, and also we have some new, I would say, important political personalities that joined this project, and together we want to fight in the upcoming elections for the principles of democracy, for the principles of freedom and rule of law, and be an alternative to our political I would say, parties that are present right now in Slovakia, with continuing in the values as the EPP values, the policy agenda, and also show that we are a very, I would say, correct and cooperative centristic party who wants to do a long-term policy in Slovakia based on data, based on good relationships within the country with the important stakeholders in the country, but also within European Union. So all the same principles that we saw that were working on the level of European Union or through these three crises, these are the values that we want to continue and provide to our political arena, and be a foundation for merging people and parties who also want to see Slovakia as a modern and very successful country, and be also a counter voice to Robert Fico and those who want to actually strengthen or create Slovakia as an authoritarian regime, even though they don't say it loudly, but with all their action we see where they aiming and who they're fighting against. So be a strong alternative of first EPP values, because they are the best named and proclaimed, and this is what we want to bring here in Slovakia together with other members of EPP, and also bring through unity and cooperation a strong alternative for the elections. And also providing and showing, because the recovery plan, as we all know, is a strong attribute of all the membership countries. And Slovakia put together one of the most ambitious recovery plan that is based on reforms and investments. And maybe you know or not, Slovakia is one of the 6 countries in the top 6 countries from all the EU members in fulfilling the recovery plan. We did over these 3 years, we passed many important reforms, and now we're implementing it, and we're also implementing a lot of investments, because that's what we see as a way to the long-term sustainable economy, but also society that is based on the values, as I said, of freedom, rule of law, respect, etc. So, dear friends, I'm sharing this as so you are aware of what's going on here in Slovakia, what's going on within our party, and we will gladly have your support and cooperation in the upcoming, not just upcoming months, but in the upcoming years, to make Europe strong, to make Europe really global leader. And also, speaking of enlarging, Ukraine is as our direct member, we see very closely what's happening, but that's why we are such a strong promoter of individual tracks, so they can become a member of European Union, because we know that security is the value number 1 in the European region in general. But that all also includes the Western Balkans. We think that it's very important that they are our partners and not partners of somebody else, because if we don't have good relationship with them, and if we don't build good relationship, and if we are not helping them, somebody else is doing it, and we know that that's a not good alternative for Europe. So that's why we support helping these countries to on their way to integrate to Europe and European Union. We went through this process 20 years ago, and I see Mikuláš Dzurinda sitting there on the floor, and he was the prime minister who caught up for all the mistakes of previous governments and brought Slovakia to European Union, and we felt the support of the European countries, and that's very important, and this is something that we want to provide to those countries who are on the way on integration. So we see again that even though we have different priorities from the cohesion aspect and reforms in membership countries, but through the value of unity and cooperation, we are strong, and we can do a lot, and we can really provide to our citizens within European Union much higher life life with much higher quality. And this is our goal. This is why we are in the politics, and we look forward to the cooperation and your support. Thank you very much again.
Eduard, thank you so much for your time, for your virtual presence in the EPP Political Assembly. That is a true EPP approach you presented today, and you can also be sure of the full support from your EPP friends in Europe. We will also discuss and decide today about the rebranding of Spolo towards a democracy, that this is also recognized and supported on European level. So all the best for you, for your campaigning in front of you, for all your friends. And you referred to the legacy, to the background. Also Mikuláš was presenting for bringing Slovakia towards Europe, bringing Slovakia towards a modern approach that is EPP in a broader sense, even in a historic sense. So thanks so much. All the best and good luck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. All the best to you.
So dear friends, we directly go to the next slot in our agenda. That we are looking to the outside world, outside of the European Union. And we will start now first with our friends from Moldova. It's good to have Natalia with us, the former Prime Minister of Moldova. And I want to underline again that with Maia Sandu as President, with you, with all the friends there in Moldova, you know that you have the support from all of us. And it's great to have you today here to get an insight about the state of play in your country and what can we additionally probably do. Siegfried Murisan will then moderate the discussion with you, but Natalia, good to have you, and you have the floor.
Dear President Weber, dear Manfred, dear friends, it is great to be here in Munich and to speak about the challenges, but also the opportunities that Europe and the people of Europe are facing today. We had very rich discussions about innovation and education, about agriculture and the development of the regions. And now with the Prime Minister's intervention, we are moving towards a very important issue that is still plaguing us today, and that is safety and security in Europe. And, but let me first start by saying that not only as the former Prime Minister of Moldova, but as the first deputy of the Party of Action and Solidarity, I am particularly honored that this is the first EPP event within our family where the Party of Action and Solidarity participates as an associate party, associate member. And I am confident that this will foster ever-growing cooperation between our parties to promote our common values of peace, freedom, security, and prosperity, and help us work towards a united Europe that helps every European achieve its full potential. And I also want to express our gratitude for the support of our family, of our EPP family, throughout the years. This support and sometimes guidance has kept Moldova for years on the democratic path. And especially we are grateful for the support that we have received in the last 2 years, which have been quite turbulent times. And the resolutions and the decisions that you have initiated, you have voted for, you have influenced, have really been crucial, we think, in Moldova achieving country status and adequate support. And we, as President Maia Sandu said actually in the Congress in Rotterdam, we believe strongly that this is what will anchor us in the free world. And this is the only way to guarantee our citizens a free, safe, democratic, and prosperous future. And by providing this support, EPP demonstrated yet again the commitment towards ensuring that all Europeans can live in freedom, security, and prosperity. But unfortunately, as we speak, the freedom, security, and prosperity of the people of Ukraine are being threatened by this unjust and brutal war of the Russian Federation, which it has been waging for more than a year now in Ukraine. And every day since then, innocent women and children, young and elderly, as well as the Ukrainian soldiers on the front line of the war, are paying the ultimate price for defending us all and our European way of life, through the lives that they lose, through the wounds they suffer, and the damage that is endured. But I think what saddens me today even more is that, you know, we are getting used to living with a war in our neighborhood. And images that are depicting yet new waves of attacks on Ukrainian cities and towns are now relegated from breaking news to sort of the new normal. But such a terrible war should never become a new normal. And this is why I think that we need to continue being united and continue to all support support Ukraine and consolidate this unity. And I can assure you that Moldova will spare no effort in this regard by receiving the refugees, giving them a warm welcome as we have done, by facilitating the transit of goods to and from Ukraine, or by cooperating to ensure safety and security on our border. And we have said this before, and I want to stress it. It's the bravery of the Ukrainian defenders means that Moldova at this time is not under direct military threat. Yet, you know, the firm commitment that President Maia Sandu, the ruling party of Action and Solidarity led by our President Igor Grosu, and the government now led by Prime Minister Rechan, the firm commitment that we have all shown towards transforming Moldova, modernizing Moldova in a European model of development, you know, means that there are forces that do not welcome this transformation. They would like to see Moldova remain in this gray zone of authoritarianism and corruption and decay. And such forces, and I'm talking here about oligarchs who are disturbed by our efforts to restore the rule of law. These oligarchs acting in collusion with Russian interests have been waging a full-fledged hybrid war against Moldova. And we see disinformation and fake news, cyber attacks, the misuse of energy prices in order to stoke social unrest. And this is all part of a toolbox that is employed against the European aspirations of our people. We have been dealing with illegally paid protests, and these are fueled and financed from the very money that has been stolen from the Moldovan people. And fugitive oligarch who has now been condemned in Moldova for the participating and playing a key role in the €1 billion banking fraud that we saw in 2014. So this fugitive who is hiding in Israel has been key in organizing these illegal protests. And you know, some of the protesters, when you talk to them, they say, we are too poor to be democratic. And that is a very good example of how Russian propaganda is working to wipe out the confidence, the effort, and the ambition to stay independent and on our European path. Dear friends, I want to say that I represent a political party that has not only been able to steer the ship through a multitude of overlapping crises, but also to put in place the building blocks for true transformation, for true structural reforms. It has not been easy. We first saw the consequences of the pandemic. Then we faced an energy blackmail, even before the start of the war. And then, of course, we had all the spillover effects of the war on our economy. And here I want to say that we're facing a lot of the same problems that your countries are facing. We discuss this all the time. We have this inflation, cost of living crisis, energy prices. But the orders of magnitude for Moldova are much larger because we are right next to the conflict, and our capacity to deal with this and to mitigate the consequences are weaker. So, you know, just to give you a couple of numbers, in 2022, our GDP contracted by almost 6%, and at the highest level, inflation reached 35%. So very clear in stagflation territory. And, you know, if we look at energy prices, they have grown by 7%, and the gas prices have increased by 7%, and then electricity prices increased twofold as well. And yet, through all this turbulence, I'm very, very proud that in my time, almost 2 years as Prime Minister, together with my team, we managed to deal with these crises, but also start important structural reforms. So we received more than 5 times the number of refugees estimated as our capacity by UNHCR. And this has been through extraordinary solidarity in all parts of the society. And to this day, we actually have experts coming to study how this happened, that it was a very smooth process, and it was done as a team by all stakeholders. At the same time, in just one heating season, we went from being 100% dependent on gas provision from the Russian Federation to 100% provision of gas from alternative sources on the right bank of Moldova, so the territory that is controlled by the central government. So, this has come at a cost, but we have also managed to put in place a targeted energy vulnerability system to support our people in this transition. And we also were, who would have thought, the first country to use the Greece-Bulgaria interconnector, and also the first country to provide gas in reverse flow through the Trans-Balkanic pipeline. We have also started an important justice reform, and now have the Superior Council of Magistrates composed of externally vetted judges for integrity and other members. It's not just judges, but this external vetting with support of our European friends is ongoing, and it's a difficult fight. The fight for the rule of law takes a long time, but we are seeing some islands of excellence and decisions, as I said, like condemnation of the oligarchs, or important decisions on state assets that have been illegally concessed or privatized going to court. We have also started very important deregulation and free enterprise reforms. We have created programs to support access to finance for our small and medium enterprises because they are a key to innovation, but also to the development of economy and the creation of jobs. It is when small enterprises grow that they create the jobs that are needed for our people. And, you know, in all of this, don't just take my word for it. You know, we have important indices that are starting to show Moldova's progress. And we were very happy that just 2 days ago for World Freedom Day, Press Freedom Day, Reporters Without Borders ranked Moldova 28th out of 180 countries in the world on press freedom, rising 12 positions from last year. 28th means that we were ahead of many EU countries and mature democracies. And we are very glad to see these efforts to build democracy recognized. Also, if we look at the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, we have also progressed to a level that is shows a 10-year, more than 10-year low in terms of sort of perceptions of corruption. And of course, this demonstrates that on our path for European integration, we are not looking for shortcuts. We are very much prepared to do our homework and to implement the reforms that will bring the real de facto transformation in our society. And on this, we are, again, very, very helpful, we're very grateful for the support that we have received. These achievements would not have been possible without the unwavering help of EPP, of our European friends, and you know, I would like to express my heartfelt thank you for the support that my government has received and our country continues to receive. And you know, just an example, I talked about the blackmail that we have faced with energy prices and the programs that we have put together to mitigate the impact of these prices. And this would have been impossible without the additional budget support that we have received from the European Union, which financed this. And this is having a real impact, you know, under the stagflation that I mentioned to you, with a fall in GDP, with high inflation, it went a long way to mitigate for the fall in the standards of living for our people. And here I want to say that we continue to need your firm support to match with our firm determination and commitment. And we know that this support exists, the political will exists, and we continue to count on you for this. And finally, you know, to conclude, I actually want to say that we have discussed some very interesting issues that are facing Europe today. Again, a very rich discussion on innovation, on the development of regions. And it's very important that in 2024, the citizens of the European Union will be called for a new election. And this is happening at the same time with presidential elections in the US on the other side of the Atlantic. And, you know, if we look at all the challenges that we are facing and this nexus of security threats from the war in the vicinity, climate change challenges, technological developments and innovations and the consequences that this bring on our economies and the societies, a leading role for European political party is more important than ever. And, you know, Konrad Adenauer said in an electoral address that now is not the time for experiments. So now is very important to maintain a leading role for the European People's Party and an ironclad commitment for the transatlantic partnership. And in this, it's very important to work together and to have a close alignment of our countries, our parties who share the same fundamental values and the same mission. It is our responsibility to shape the journey that will follow, and a journey that my country, the Republic of Moldova, and my party, the Party of Action and Solidarity, is excited to be a part of, together with all of those in Europe who cherish freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Thank you, Prime Minister. Once a Prime Minister, always a Prime Minister. Thank you. Now we have some minutes, colleagues, for a quick discussion. And obviously, since the beginning of the war, we have learned that we can only live in safety and security, stability within the borders of the European Union if we are surrounded in our immediate neighborhood by countries which are safe and stable. And the Republic of Moldova is a direct neighbor of the European Union. This is why it is important for our own security, and it is geographically located between the European Union and Ukraine. And the fact that Moldova is being governed in such a pro-European manner now, and it is a reliable ally, is important for us as European Union, but it is important for Ukraine as well, because Ukraine would be in a much worse situation if, in addition to Lukashenko in Belarus, Putin would have a pro-Russian ally in the Republic of Moldova. This is why it is so important that we stand together, and this is why my first question: what do you think are the risks coming from the Russian Federation ahead of the elections in the Republic of Moldova? You've mentioned in 1 year there will be presidential elections, in 2 years' times there are parliamentary elections. Fortunately, Russian troops are being kept far away by the fighters in Ukraine. But of course, Russia will try to weaken the pro-European course of the country. What are the dangers? Tell us so that we know, so that we are aware, so that we do not fall victims also to propaganda, disinformation from Russia when it comes.
Thank you, Siegfried. And let me use this opportunity to thank you personally for all the work that you're doing on Moldova, and also the Romanian government. We have had a cooperation that is at its highest level, I think, ever since Moldova became independent, and this has been very important for our progress. In terms of the risks, they are, we always say it's complex, worrisome, but stable. The number one risk is we should always remember that we have a separatist region of Transnistria, and there are Russian troops on the territory of this region. We have been handling the situation, and here I would like to point out that the Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement, which saw the trade from even the Transnistrian region orient towards the EU, plays an important part. So this is a clear example where sort of economic integration can sometimes help maintain strong safety and security as well. But most importantly, because as you mentioned, as long as the troops are being held back by the brave Ukrainian defenders, for us, the biggest risks come from this hybrid war. We do have significant disinformation, and we are very worried. Yesterday I asked a question during our innovation panel on sort of how we mitigate some of this potential the impact of potential technological developments on deep fakes that are very difficult to discern. We have to take an action to stop the TV channels that were directly linked with the oligarch and were distributing propaganda, but the media landscape remains one of our worries. And then, of course, this fall in economic standards under such difficult economic conditions makes people more likely to fall prey to this propaganda, to fall prey to these illegally financed protests, to overt lies that are being told as well. We are very grateful to work with our partners on improving our cybersecurity. I want to mention here that we have seen the highest number and the biggest attack since our independence in 2022 on our IT systems. We have managed to restore or to keep our systems safe, but we are working fast and with a lot of determination to improve our cyber defenses. We are seeing, as you probably have heard, the attempts to destabilize Moldova, through maybe detonation of the protest movement. So we have seen people who have been turned around from the border where there was information and intelligence to indicate that they were there to stir unrest that was capable of overthrowing the pro-European government. So we are very grateful for support in improving our security and defense. We have the European Peace Facility, which is helping us modernize our military. We have increased our defense budget significantly. We are also looking forward to a civil mission to Moldova. We are also continuing to require budget support to implement these reforms and these programs that we have talked about, and then support in these areas like freedom of or fight against disinformation, cybersecurity defenses, and transforming the administrative capacity to deal with all these challenges.
One question maybe before we open up to the floor. The Republic of Moldova obviously wants to become a member state of the European Union. Immediately after the war started, you submitted the letter of application, and in June of last year, the European Council has unanimously granted the Republic of Moldova, together with Ukraine, EU candidate status. But of course we know that many things still have to be done before the Republic of Moldova can become an EU member state, both things to be done in Moldova, but also things that we have to do at European level. We're committed to doing them together. EPP will always be there with you. My question is the following: what are the European projects that you and programs that you want to join to become a member, even before the EU integration and accession can conclude with Moldova formally becoming an EU member state? How do you see yourselves economically, trade, with the so many projects that we have slowly, gradually integrating? What are your priorities there?
So, first of all, let me say that we are working towards the transformation of Moldova on the path towards European Union, first and foremost for our citizens. And this is why we have actually been working on the areas that were outlined in the 9 recommendations of the Commissions as a prerequisite to start negotiations even before we were granted candidate status. And we have been doubling down on that since the recommendations of the Commission. So we saw, for example, efforts on de-oligarchization. This is very important for the democracy in Moldova. And, excuse me, we have had a condemnation of an oligarch. We have had a return of the illegally concessed Chisinau airport back to state management. And for us, it was very important that just a couple of weeks ago, we saw the decision of the European Council to develop a framework of sanctions for the oligarchs that have been working on destabilizing Moldova and thwarting the European path. So we continue to need such brave political decisions, to help us deal with the threats from the oligarchs and from the Russian Federation and this hybrid war. I would say it will be another brave decision that will have to be taken when this autumn we will review whether we can start negotiations. So this is a very, very important issue. I already mentioned the support in defense and security. This continues to be important, and all aspects of security from the European Peace Facility and the civilian mission to support to the border guards, our interior forces, to cyber security and cyber defenses. So all aspects of this. And then finally, we do require continued budget support. In this economic situation, it's very important to have an expansionary fiscal policy, but at the same time, we need sources to finance it. We do require support. The European Commission does have programs planned for supporting us in important sectors like health and education. So we are building our capacity to be able to use these resources, and then we very much appreciate the growing support and the growing budget dedicated to Moldova. I know that this is difficult while the countries in Europe are facing a cost of living crisis and fatigue from the news on the war of Ukraine and this new normalcy, but it continues to be very important to continue to support us financially.
Yeah. Let me just say that next week in the plenary of the European Parliament, we're going to vote and give green light to 145 million euros of macro-financial assistance from the European Union to the Republic of Moldova. As you mentioned before, the price of gas increased 7 times for the citizens of Moldova, the price of electricity 2 times. Inflation was more than 30% last year. We know that the problems that we have in EU member states, you have as well, but the magnitude is much larger, and we know, for example, that the whole GDP of the Republic of Moldova is 7 times smaller than the GDP of the city of Vienna alone. Why am I mentioning this? I'm just mentioning it to make clear that some support, which maybe is not a lot for us, Europe as a whole, it makes a big difference in your country. But let us open up now for remarks, questions from colleagues here to the Prime Minister. I think we have Hilly, please.
Yes, Hilly van der Streek, EPP Women. Thank you very much for your interesting outline and summary of what's going on in Moldova, because I think it's quite worrying what's going on in your country with risk of people going into the streets, demonstrations, and Russian influence, which is very strong. To talk about this Russian influence, what is the position of Transnistria at the moment? Because that for you, of course, must be really a problem. And also for us as EPP and also as European Union, what do we do with Transnistria? And a second question is the involvement in Russian-oriented international organizations. So you have suspended your membership of the Commonwealth of independent states. Yes. So why didn't you quit? So what's the political situation at the moment of this Russian influence still, in particular to those two issues, Transnistria as well as the CIS? Thank you.
So, as I mentioned, we have to face the reality that there are Russian troops on the territory of the Transnistrian region. And, here, an element to keep in mind is that in 1999, Russia committed to withdrawing troops at the OSCE summit. And we, if we think about it, it's these years and years of allowing these international commitments not to be respected that has led to the situation that we are seeing now. And this threatening of the rules-based international order. So this means that the leaders of the secessionist region are not always independent in their decisions. But as I said, we have now a more complex economic reality. The border with Ukraine is closed. The goods and services are flowing through our borders. From the Transnistria region, I mentioned already the positive impact of the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement in these interconnections, economic interconnections. So this is maintaining a balance. Now, in terms of sort of resolution of this, frozen conflict, we all have to recognize that a lot will depend on how the war in Ukraine evolves and how it ends, what type of decisions are taken, and this will influence very much our approach. We are working on scenarios. We don't talk publicly about this. When this will be ready, of course, then we will talk about it. But it's very much contingent on what happens in Ukraine. In terms of Commonwealth of Independent States, just last week before I came here, the parliament, for example, voted on us leaving the CIS television network, MIR, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is doing an analysis. So the CIS is a complex mix of agreements, and there is an analysis done on how we leave, what are the consequences, and so forth. But for all practical purposes, this is now, of course, suspended.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please, our Ukrainian friends.
First of all, thank you very much for everything you are doing for Ukraine. And of course, we need more, and always will ask for more. And now it's maybe not a question, but a short remark. And I want to ask all colleagues present in this room, now please see Moldova not as some separate situation which is somewhere not totally related to Ukraine, but as a very important element of our fight against Russia, very important element. Because Russia also understands the value and the importance of these elections, which will be next year. And believe me, they will spend huge resources with purpose to change the direction of development in Moldova. So that means that now, please double, please triple your efforts with purpose to support pro-democratic, pro-European cause of Moldova. Because I understand that there is European bureaucracy, procedures, rules, etc., etc. But please, drastically increase speed of all your decision making, which will help to keep Moldova on a democratic and pro-European way. Because if something will be wrong during the election, it will be too late for you to fight for Moldova. And for us in Ukraine, it's also extremely important because you already mentioned, we have Belarus, and you see what's going on from Belarusian territory. We have Russia, we have now only, let's say, somehow safe the borders with our European partners in Moldova, and to get from Moldova also the, let's say, critically dangerous borders. For us, it's not an issue. So that was a small remark, but again, thank you very much for all you are doing. And we really value all the things which President Sandu and your governments are doing with purpose to support Ukraine and with purpose to keep Moldova democratic and pro-European way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Now we are here with coming to the end of this panel. I would like to thank Manfred for always putting Moldova on the agenda. Whenever Ukraine is being discussed, he says, we as EPP say Ukraine and Moldova together. We understand it's important for Ukraine, as you say, that Moldova remains pro-European and the other way around as well. And let me also thank David McAllister, who was president of the Committee on Foreign Affairs in the European Parliament, is always fighting as well for bringing Moldova closer to the European Union. So thank you all, and back to you, Chairman, for the next session. Thank you.
Merci. Merci.
So, dear President Manfred Weber, dear EPP friends, we now come to another item of today's agenda, and we will now be dealing with a country outside the European Union, which is a very important country for us and a valued partner. I would like to introduce our next special guest, Ms. Elisabeth Schneider-Schneider, who already contributed to yesterday's discussion. Ms. Schneider-Schneider is well known in the EPP. She's an active member of the Swiss National Parliament since 2010 and is a representative of the canton of Basel-Landschaft. Since then, she's a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee and of the National Council and has acted as its president between 2017 and 2019. Until 2015, she was also active in the Commission for Science, Education and Research. Today, she is also a member of the Swiss delegation in the Parliament to the EU-EFTA delegation. But Ms. Schneider-Schneider is not only active in politics, she's also active in business. She is the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Basel and member of the presidency of Economie Suisse, both influential business associations, and recently she was also appointed as chairwoman of the board of directors of the Raiffeisen Bank in Basel. She holds a law degree from the University of Basel. We will now be interested in hearing a Swiss point of view, how the DMIT sees the cooperation with the EPP, and also how DMIT sees the ongoing negotiations between the European Union and Switzerland. And to conclude my introductory remarks, just a few points from the EU side. Switzerland and the European Union are close neighbors. We are geopolitical allies. We greatly value the relationship with Switzerland. Switzerland is currently not seeking to become a member of the European Union, nor of the European Economic Area. This, of course, has consequences for Switzerland's rights and obligations towards the EU and for the participation of Switzerland in our internal market. But despite the Swiss unilateral decision to terminate the negotiations of the EU-Switzerland Institutional Framework Agreement, the European Union has kept its door open and remains ready to put relations with Switzerland on a solid footing. At the same time, we know there cannot be a continuation of the status quo. Our agreements will continue to erode if we cannot find a common basis. The European Union's overarching aim is clear and well known. We want to find a systemic solution that covers all structural issues across the various agreements covered by the Interinstitutional Framework Agreement and the new market agreement that Switzerland wants to start negotiating. So this is where we are. I believe that we still have a window of opportunity to move forward. However, this window is eventually getting smaller in view of the political cycle on both sides in the European Union and in Switzerland. In the European Parliament, we are now working on a report on the current EU-Switzerland relations. Our EPP colleague, Lukas Mandl, is the rapporteur, and he has presented his draft report just last week in the Foreign Affairs Committee. Without any further ado, I now invite Elisabeth Schneider-Steiter to take the floor, and we're happy to hear your interesting contribution.
Thank you, dear Vice President. Thank you, dear David. Geschätzter Herr Präsident, please allow me to speak in German. That's not my mother language. My mother language is Swiss German. German is a strange language, but we learn it in school. So, ich bin sehr froh, bin ich heute
I'm very pleased to be here today.
Wir haben nicht so große Probleme
We do not have as big problems as Moldova. Please allow me to say a few words on Moldova. Switzerland is very much engaged in Moldova. We have a number of help packages that are going on in Moldova. Currently, we have a strong humanitarian tradition in Switzerland. We centralize this in the east, also in Moldova, because we share the opinion that Moldova is as a central element for the situation in Europe. So thank you very much, Natalia, for the good work you're doing in Moldova. I was there on 3 occasions to observe elections. It's an extremely interesting country, and I'm pleased that Switzerland also was able to sign a free trade agreement with Moldova, with the EFTA countries, and Norway and Iceland. And I think this will also give you some economic support that Moldova needs. So thank you very, very much to Moldova and the people living there. I would simply like to say a few words about Switzerland. You always think that Switzerland is the country of happiness with their banks and cows and mountains, but it's no longer like this for a long time. Switzerland is one of the most networked countries in the world. We are no longer as neutral as we always pretend to be or think we are. Our economy is dependent not only on Europe, but also on globally. We are one of the largest investors across the world, and we are so much export-oriented, our industry, that gives us our wealth, and we are dependent on Europe on the one side, on the EU, on the member states of the EU, but also dependent on other countries in the world. With the EU, with Europe, we are linked through history, our values, also the Christian democratic values on this continent, but also culturally we're very much linked and networked in Europe. And also in terms of language, you need to know in our parliament we speak 4 languages. That's a challenge for us. We do not speak English, we speak French, Italian, German and Romanian. The last one only because our president, also from the Mitte party, is from that region. But we are very much connected. I, from Basel, am more connected to South Germany than to various cantons in the center of Switzerland. The French speakers in Switzerland are more connected to France than with other cantons in Switzerland. And at the same time, same thing for Tessin, the canton Tessin, where they speak Italian. They have closer connections to Milan than to Bern, which means that we are at the heart of Europe, we are connected to Europe, and this is the starting point. We have a strong networking, for instance, with Baden-Württemberg and Bavaria, we do more things than with China, and we have more turnover than with China. We have an incredible mobility in Switzerland with 9 million inhabitants, and 450,000 of these people come from the EU, living in Switzerland. I'm sorry. 54,000 Swiss live in the EU, and 450,000 Europeans live in Switzerland. So just think of it, a country with 9 million inhabitants, and we have 1.4 million EU citizens who live happily in our country. But we also have people crossing the border every day. 400,000 cross the border every day, come to work to our country to work, cross the border to work, and we need these people. We need freedom of movement that we have with the EU member states. It's essential not only for our economy but also crucial for the functioning of our health system. It's crucial also for agriculture, which is not so friendly to the EU, always a bit protectionist, as you know, but it's also about preserving our identity. But agriculture is dependent on the many people from the EU member states who work in our country. Switzerland, after the United States and UK, is the most important investor in the EU. And I've just heard from a representative of Saxony that Switzerland, in the region of Saxony, is the biggest investor there in that region, Saxony. These are clear signs that show how important the cooperation is between the small Switzerland and the EU member states. I would not like to talk about the importance of Switzerland in multilateralism. Multilateralism is also an issue that used to be that I would like to see at top of the agenda of the EPP, because multilateralism is being lost. Multilateralism is really crucial for the strength of Europe. Just since we're talking about multilateralism and Swiss neutrality, currently we are the chair of the UN Security Council. We're proud that we can do that and make a contribution to create more peace and stability in this world. Now, why is Switzerland not doing so well? Nothing compared to Moldova, but currently we're not doing so well. We have a number of reputational risks also going on, because also the war in Ukraine, Switzerland first was a bit reticent to take over the sanctions imposed by the EU. You need to understand that it took us 3 days to redefine our concept of neutrality. After 3 days, our executive then also gave the okay, the green light, to take over the EU sanctions, and almost all of them, and which makes me proud a little bit. Switzerland also has a reputational risk on account of the situation that we have difficulty sending military material to Ukraine. It's part of our neutrality concept or principle that we don't want to do that, not even indirectly, but I can tell you, the President said so too, that the Mitte, so that's our party, the Mitte is part of the EPP, and the Mitte is working very hard so that we can do that. We cannot afford to be offside. All the more we hope, and David McAllister said so, we hope that with regard to the difficulties we currently have with the EU, that we can find solutions. You may know that we have a special path, a special relation with the EU, around 120 bilateral agreements in various areas, and with these bilateral agreements, with this bilateral path, this worked quite well over past decades. Every year, more or less every year, we concluded a new bilateral agreement with the EU. I can understand that the EU is fed up with this special relationship with Switzerland. And after all, we're a family here, I can tell you. I belong to those who don't find it correct that Switzerland in recent years just took the best, did some cherry picking, took over the rights but not the obligations. And Switzerland also needs to take a step forward to find solutions which are equitable to both, fair to both sides. Therefore, our party, the Mitte, has concluded a framework agreement to institutionalize the most important matters, for instance, the rule of law, how do we manage jurisdictions, so what law is to be applied if we want to participate in the European internal market. The Mitte, our party has always believed that we need to find ways to clear the way and have the same footing both sides. But the Mitte, our party, also felt that it's difficult to find unity in the population. The right, the conservatives, in any case, they're allergic, you know that, everything to do with the EU, they're allergic to that. And the left is against this institutionalization because they are afraid that in terms of wages, the wages will be watered down and that would be detrimental to them. And I can tell you, the unions, the European unions, are not playing a fair role here. And they're not loyal. Our unions are being supported by the European unions to prevent this, to boycott this institutionalization. And in this situation, after many negotiations, after long negotiations, on the 26th of May 2021, we broke off the negotiations with the EU. That was a mistake. David was very much involved, and I have a lot of understanding that the EU was really disappointed. We broke off the negotiations without asking Parliament. And now, in the past 2 years, we have tried to come together again, and it's going in the right direction. Our executive recently announced that until the end of June, they want to create the basic points for a new negotiating mandate, and I'm confident we can find solutions. We need compromises. The EU made some compromises. We will also make some compromises, but you need to know that we need a good wording to be able to explain why the EU should throw us out of the Horizon research program. I don't understand it personally. We need a strong research and innovation in Europe, and the strongest country of innovation, the best country with the best schools, is being thrown out of the central research program. I think these were accidents. This was also a means to put pressure on us, but with such actions, we're only playing to the hands of the conservatives. And that's our problem. If we can't find solutions with the support of the Mitte and EPP, we're only playing into the hands of the conservatives and the left unions. So we need solutions. We need to solve that problem once and for all, also with the help of the EPP. And the EPP was always supportive of Switzerland. At the Congress in Rotterdam last year, we adopted a resolution at the request of the Austrian delegation. I'm very pleased about that. And as has been said already, the Swiss report of colleague Mandl and Andreas Schwab, the Swiss report, is very positive for Switzerland because we need to find solutions now. The EPP can play a crucial role also to strengthen our party, the Mitte. On the 22nd of October, we'll have elections in Switzerland. We need to be careful that we are not being crushed between the two opposites. You can see that in your own countries too. And to strengthen the middle ground, our party, it would be a good thing to take forward the EU dossier and find solutions. Now, as to the EPP, we as a non-EU country, as I said so here before, Europe and EU is very often, people think that EU and Europe are the same. I used to work in the European Council. 47 member states have worked together there. Sometimes with Russia, sometimes without Russia, you know the story. But Europe is in the European Council. It's not only focused on the EU. Europe and the EU are not the same. And we in the EPP feel this when you talk about Europe. What you actually mean is the European Union. And I'm calling on you, and I'm launching an appeal. I think I can speak for Norway and for the Icelandic delegations, and I hope they will soon be part of our EPP family. The EPP covers the whole continent of Europe. European does not only mean EU. And that's my concern, because the geopolitical changes need more than the EU. These geopolitical changes need a strong Europe, a strong continent, a strong EPP, including countries like Switzerland, Norway and Iceland. But countries like Moldova also belong to Europe. And that's why today I will be talking for your country too, Natalia. So I would be pleased if, in terms of the security architecture, energy supply, supply chains, and when we talk about migration, we should not only focus on the EU, but work together in the framework of the EPP for the whole of Europe. The Mitte is ready to make our contribution, and Konrad Adenauer once said, it's not the time for experiments. And this is our attitude too in Switzerland, also in the Mitte, and we would like to thank you for this platform, shedding some light and the spotlight on Switzerland. Thank you very much for your attention. Dear Elisabeth, thank you very much for this very interesting input, and this was a good initiative by Manfred Weber to give Switzerland a platform at the political assembly, because we deal a lot with one another outside the European Union and the EPP, because we have many great parties outside the European Union, but rarely have we focused on such an important country for us in the heart of Europe, like Switzerland. Elisabeth, I have two questions. On the one hand, what are your expectations? What expectations does the Mitte have? You answered that question already with regard to the EU. And the second question, what is the state of affairs in the current negotiations on the institutional agreement between Switzerland and the European Union? You answered that question too. So now I'm at a loss. The moderator is at a loss. I don't even know what I should ask you, because your answers were so comprehensive. Nevertheless, let me ask you again. The window of opportunity, the opportunity that we can finally agree is closing slowly. You will have elections soon. We are going to have elections end of May, beginning of June. How realistic is the possibility that we really get an agreement? And you insisted, as the Mitte in Switzerland is building bridges, we as the European People's Party also try to play a very constructive role. Lukas Mandel's report shows once again that in Parliament we are ready to take a step towards you, but there are a number of points that we as the European Union need to stick to, because what we negotiate with you also has consequences with on our relations with other countries. And particularly in London, they're looking very closely at what we're doing here, because the Brits will also have their own requests. So my short final question is, what do you think, in your view, with your experience, how realistic is it that we find an agreement and that this game is soon over? I always see the glass half full, and I hope that these exploratory talks, currently our State Secretary had held 9 exploratory talks. It goes beyond exploration. I think many questions are already ready for negotiations, because we don't want to fail. Nobody wants to fail. The EU doesn't want to fail, and we, the Swiss, don't want to fail either. And I could imagine that the Bundesrat, the Federal Council, agrees on the main pillars of the negotiation, and the mandate will be developed until after the elections, 22nd of October, and then we can start the negotiations for relatively quickly, because I realize that next year you will have elections. The main negotiator, Mr. Šefčovič, will not necessarily be our counterpart, and for that reason we now need solutions. We need to have finished our negotiations until mid-next year, otherwise it will take 2 or 3 years again until this point is put on the agenda again. Our problem is, and I really belong to the EPP family, because I want to be open towards you. Our problem is our direct democracy, our system of direct democracy. This framework agreement needs to be confirmed with a referendum, and we need majorities. And these majorities we can only find if the government is acting accordingly and tries to address some sensitive points. The government needs to act correctly. We have a government composed of 7 people. You cannot imagine this. A government with 7 people, 4 parties, and only our representative is in favor of the institutionalization of the relationship with the EU. So we feel in energy, we are far away from agreement. Access to the European internal market is jeopardized. Soon the European machine regulation will come into force, so our machine industry will be discriminated against. I mean, we will simply be excluded, not even discriminated against. We were excluded from Horizon Europe. It's really annoying. It doesn't only annoy the Swiss researchers, but also the European researchers and many companies. We're weakening ourselves, and we have so many disadvantages. And slowly but surely, the government is understanding this, and I really hope that we can find solutions. The important thing is, and you are behaving really in an exemplary way, it's important that the EU does not put too much pressure on Switzerland. This needs to grow slowly in Switzerland, bottom up, the understanding, and things are moving, and most opinion polls conducted in recent weeks indicate that Switzerland realizes that to maintain this bilateral relationship, it really needs an effort on the side of Switzerland. Super. Thank you very much. Manfred Weber is going to give his report. So my question, are there any indications, questions, remarks to our speaker here, to Elisabeth? If that's not the case, I would like to say Switzerland is a very strong part of Europe. Secondly, the Mitte is a strong party in our family, and the EPP. I find this was a refreshing approach today. Dear Elisabeth, I have heard other politicians from Switzerland who are not as constructive as you are, or as therefore great that the Mitte is playing such a constructive role in Switzerland, and I really hope that you can take a political advantage out of this. I think slowly Bern is realizing, and elsewhere people realize that Switzerland, which is surrounded by EU member states, that we need to put our relationship on a solid foundation, and a robust foundation. A remarkable figure mentioned by Elisabeth: 1.4 EU citizens live in Switzerland. 1.4 million. More EU citizens in Switzerland than in some member states of the European Union. These are 1.4 million potential voters at the European election. Therefore, for that reason, we need to be very attentive, looking to the European election, being very attentive with, and look at Switzerland. Thank you very much. That was a refreshing contribution.